Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank Chairman Leahy for holding this hearing. What we're talking about today is a $45 billion deal that would combine the nation's biggest and the nation's second biggest cable companies and the nation's biggest and the nation's third biggest internet service providers. There is no doubt that Comcast is a huge influential corporation, and I understand there are over 100 lobbyists making the case for this deal to members of Congress and our staffs. But I've also heard from over 100,000 consumers who oppose this deal. And I think their voices need to be heard too. As members of the Senate Judiciary Committee, we are here to question whether this deal is good for competition and whether it's in the public interest. I'm against this deal because I believe it does not meet either test. I believe this deal will result in fewer choices, higher prices, and even worse service for my constituents. Comcast has argued that there's nothing to worry about here because it doesn't compete with Time Warner Cable in any zip code. Mr. Cohn has told reporters, quote, "There is absolutely no competitive overlap between the two companies, none," unquote. What he's really saying is that these two companies, each of which controls many of their own local markets, want to become one larger company that controls the national market. The new Comcast would operate in 19 of the nation's 20 biggest markets, 27 of the top 30, as Mr. Bosworth said. That kind of expansion has a serious impact on competition. For example, when Comcast wanted to acquire NBC Universal, Comcast's CEO told this committee not to worry about it because there were still other, quote, robust distributors. And he specifically named Time Warner Cable, which would prevent Comcast from setting anti-competitive prices for NBC content. The point was that Comcast couldn't get away with that sort of behavior because the distributors, including Time Warner Cable, wouldn't stand for it, and they could go to the FCC to complain about it too. Later in the hearing, Comcast CEO also assured us, quote, "We are not getting any larger in cable distribution here," unquote. Well, if this deal goes through, Comcast will become larger in cable distribution, and if this deal goes through, Comcast never again will have to negotiate with Time Warner Cable when it comes to setting prices for NBC content. And NBC content, everyone should remember, is 20-some networks. Comcast can't have it both ways. It can't say that the existence of competition among distributors, including Time Warner Cable, was a reason to approve the NBC deal in 2010 and then turn around a few years later and say that the absence of competition with Time Warner Cable is a reason to approve this deal. Mr. Kimmelman, what do you make of Comcast's argument that they don't compete against each other at all? Doesn't that really underestimate the anti-competitive implications of this deal?
Absolutely, Senator Franken. It is true they don't overlap geographically, but that is not the entire competitive analysis either for the Department of Justice or for the Federal Communications Commission. The question here is, are there ways in which they can leverage unfairly? Do they have excess market power? Can they drive up prices? Can they harm quality and innovation? And there are numerous ways in which they can do that. If Time Warner can no longer discipline their pricing for NBC programming, prices will go up there. They probably will go up across the entire distribution chain, harming consumers everywhere. Having the additional leverage of Time Warner as part of the Comcast family gives them enormous power over how the internet develops the ability to offer new innovative services, what devices, what consumer interfaces work. If they have almost half of the customers in the country, that's what manufacturers will make products for that half. meet their specifications. If they continue to want that to be through a bundled, high-priced set of services, I'm sure it will be. These are all enormous dangers that have significant competitive impacts and tremendous harm for consumers.
Well, speaking of bundled services, we'll get to that later. I'm out of time. Mr. Chairman, I very much hope we'll go to a second round.
I'm confident we will.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Franken. Senator Hatch.